This is going to be some of the information that I got out of that. Yeah, so hands up who's had a drug test before. Okay, that's most people here have done a lick stick. That's pretty good. It's not a very nice process sometimes. Can be pretty nerve-wracking. As you can feel, and if you lose your license, it's pretty horrible consequences from that. So what I'm going to talk about today is I'm going to give a bit of an overview of the RBT roadside drug testing process, the lick tests, then what they test for, and I'm going to then talk and go specifically and talk about cannabis and cannabinoids and how your body works with them and what they test for there. And then I'm going to talk about MDMA and methamphetamine and also the amphetamines in general and how they differ from THC in their detection and how your body works with them. And then what we're going to do is talk about some things, misconceptions around drug testing, and also things that you can do to kind of make them work in your favour. So during this talk, I don't mind if it's a bit interactive, so if anyone has a question at any time about what I'm talking about, just put your hands up and I can answer it straight away. And at the end then we're going to maybe have a little demonstration with some tests. So, alright. So the way these drug tests work is there's a particular, there's a number of tests they can use when you first get pulled over. The most common one is the Sure Tech, and it's a dual test. And that tests for THC, or specifically delta 9 THC, which is the active compound, one of the main active compound of cannabis. And then it tests for the methamphetamine group, and generally two compounds that most commonly will bring up is methamphetamine and then MDMA, which is methylene dioxymethamphetamine. It has the same methamphetamine group, and so that one test brings up both of them. It can't differentiate the two, but it can bring up both. In New South Wales and in Queensland, they also brought in cocaine testing, so that will test the cocaine usage as well. So once you do a test on the roadside, they will get you to take it, swab it around your mouth. They need to collect a certain amount of saliva for that. And then if that's positive, then they'll take you back to the van or the police station. And then they conduct a second test. And this test, it's using a more sensitive machine. It's called a Cozart Rapsican. And what they do then is they collect 1 ml of saliva in this collection tube, and then they put that into the machine. It will test it and give a result. And regardless of that result, they then send that saliva sample away, and that gets tested in a lab and using very sensitive equipment. So if you have to do that second test, that second test also detects a larger range of chemicals. So it brings up amphetamines, it brings up opiates, it brings up a lot of things that the first initial test doesn't. But if you're negative on that test, then you're free to go. Even if your sample then gets brought up as positive from the lab, they take the Rapsican test as kind of like the final point. So one of the things is it's best not to get that second test. So ideally, we just want to avoid that and come up negative on the first test. And that's kind of what I'll be focusing on today. So there's been new regulations in Victoria that you might have heard about, and they've said that now you don't have to it's not a mandatory loss of license if you get caught. It's now up to the judge's discretion, but you still have to go to court. You still have to stand in front of a judge. So it's a little bit positive, but it's by far no major step forward. Alright, so cannabis. It's the most common one that people are concerned about. And like I said, they test for delta 9 THC, and once you smoke it, it gets into your body. Most of that is metabolized and excreted in your poo, and some of it gets excreted in your urine, about 20%. But it's pretty rapidly, over a number of hours, changed from delta 9 THC to its major metabolite, which is THC COOH. And this is generally what they test for in urine, and because it loves to hang around in fats, lipophilic, loves fat, the metabolites hang around in your body, they get into your fat stores, and they slowly leach out. And this is why urine testing for THC has a very long tail. You can come up quite a long time afterwards. But testing for the delta 9 THC, the active component, that actually goes away relatively quickly. And so, a lot of people don't know it, but when they're doing the oral saliva test, the THC that's in your saliva, it only gets there from contamination from actually smoking or eating cannabis. It doesn't come from your body, inside your body, at all. And we know this from some very nice research that was done back in the 70s, where they gave people THC that was labelled with a radioactive isotope. They gave them capsules, and then they took saliva samples and they measured how much radioactive THC was coming out of the saliva, and they didn't detect any. They also repeated this study in about 2010 with a synthetic cannabinoid, and they found exactly the same thing. So it doesn't come back out of your body, and what it really shows is recent usage of cannabis, and that's why they like to use it in a test, because you generally have to use it recently to have it in your mouth. What it does is when you smoke or consume cannabis, because it loves to hang out in fat, it's lipophilic, what it does is it sticks to the tissues in your mouth. They've got fat on your cell membranes, it sticks to them, and it likes to just hang out there. And it likes to get into all the little grooves in your tongue and hang out there. And then when you do a test, you rub it across. Some of those cells come off, you squeeze a bit out of your tongue, and then it comes up. Because it is not coming from your body, it can be quite variable, the amount how long it stays in your mouth, how long it's detectable for, how much is in your mouth. So there's a lot of things that dictate how long you'll be positive for. So some of the factors that dictate that is, say, the dosage. It's been shown that stronger products like stronger THC cannabis, you get more deposition in your mouth, which makes a bit of sense. But more regular use, obviously, you get more deposited if you're smoking one joint or four. It goes without saying, you probably have more in your mouth. But so if you smoke it, you will definitely have more deposit in your mouth than if you eat it. So it's quite a bit less if you, say, eat a weed cookie than if you smoke it, but it can still be detectable. But the difference is about if you, say, ingest weed, like chewing a cookie. This one test that they did, they found they could detect it about 1 nanogram per mil, but versus smoking, they could detect it at 10 nanograms per mil, so it's like a 10 times difference there. And for some of these tests, that can be a lot, considering I think this test can detect up to 15 nanograms a mil, and I believe the SecureTech White, that detects about 5, I think, 5 nanograms a mil. So, you know, that difference there is the difference between a pass or a fail, just because you eat consume the same amount, but eating one of it. You can, if you put it in capsules and you swallow that capsule, you shouldn't have any detectable THC in your mouth. And interestingly enough, last year, the TGA had previously approved a cannabis product that was THC in a capsule, and then they pulled it. They didn't say why, but they pulled it so you can no longer receive that. I'm assuming it's because they realised that it doesn't come up in tests. Which, you know, it's not really their job to decide that, but that's another topic altogether. So there's been a couple of studies that looked at whether you smoke or you vaporise, and there is a distinct difference between if you smoke. If you smoke, it's more likely to deposit, and also depending on what you're mixing it with. So if you're smoking just cannabis, you get less deposition than if you put it with tobacco. Tobacco is more of an irritant to your mouth, and it causes more to makes it a little bit more sticky, so then you get more stuff in your mouth. But definitely vaping, using a vape, reduces the amount that is going to get deposited in your mouth and can make a significant difference. How many of you have heard of puff topography? Anyone? Okay, this is a nice little word, but it's what some people came up with to describe how people hold smoke in their mouth. And this is one of the reasons why they think vaping is quite a bit different. Normally when people vape, they just inhale it directly into their lungs. Where often when people smoke, they smoke it like a cigarette, they bring it into their mouth, they hold it in there a little bit, and then they bring it into their lungs. And that means the smoke just hangs around in your mouth more, deposits more, and every breath you take, it just builds up more and more than just breathing it directly into your mouth. So there's been many studies looking at how things, at the effects of how long it lasts in your mouth. So eating food, drinking, washing your mouth, brushing your teeth, using sprays, anything really, they will significantly reduce the amount in your mouth. Generally, in these studies, they've got people to smoke, and then they've performed this, and then they've tested it. And so in all these cases where they reduced the amount, it wasn't enough to not be detectable. But in general life, it seems that your mouth hygiene, how often, if you're brushing your teeth after you smoke, if you're scraping your tongue, this can bring THC down quite a lot. Also keeping hydrated, so that your saliva is less viscous, less thick. It's been shown if you're dehydrated, you get more compounds in your saliva. So, no one's really looked at it, but we know that THC is very lipid soluble, or loves lipids. It doesn't really like water, so some people have suggested after you smoke, washing your mouth out with coconut oil or sesame oil or something like this. No one's really looked into it, but that would seem to maybe take away some of the most recent THC that's stuck to your mouth, because it really likes olive oil, sesame oil, soybean oil. It's very soluble in those. And so some people talk about using apple cider vinegar, and they swear by apple cider vinegar. Your drunk Uncle Billy probably says this got him past the drug test. We'll put that to the test later, but generally I would suggest people don't use vinegar. There's been studies that looked at vinegar, all types of vinegar really, not just apple cider vinegar. But a number of the tests have been shown that vinegar causes false positives on them for a number of different compounds. And that actually effect lasts more than 30 minutes, or up to 30 minutes. So you really want to stay away from that, even though you might have heard that it's really good. And it's probably the effect of just similar to just washing your mouth out with water. But yeah. So for THC, really, you need to think about how you consume cannabis. If you're going to be driving, and maybe choosing different ways to smoke it, maybe going vaping instead of smoking, or just washing your mouth out more, or eating weed. But that's what the research says about it. So we're going to look into. Have anyone got any questions on THC before I move on? Yeah, okay, let's have a couple of questions.
I can just shout this out. If you've got a mouth ulcer or reflux, I imagine that swallowing a capsule may still not be good. Because the THC will come out of the blood.
That's a very good question. There is potential that some would come out of the blood, yes. Whether that would be of a high enough concentration to trigger the test, I'm not sure. The tests are pretty sensitive. To put it into kind of like something that we can all understand, how sensitive they are is it's equivalent to they can detect a teaspoon of sugar in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. So very sensitive. So potentially if you had a lot of blood in your mouth, then yes, but we don't know. Yeah.
Just check it
Just because they're becoming more common coming out of the US, would these tests test positive for Delta 8? Anybody know?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know if anyone's. I'm sure that people would have looked. Generally, the companies look, but I don't think they would detect it. I can't say for certain, but I don't think they would because they're pretty specific. Yeah, but you can email the companies that make these tests, and they do tell you everything the antibodies bind to. Yeah. They don't tell you in the instructions, but they say that you can get that information. I think they have to make it available to people. They just don't want to, generally. Yeah. Any more? Yep.
Oh, sorry.
I've been using xylitol sweet chewing gum for a few years for passing THC swabs. It has been effective. I don't know if there's any science behind that or what actually makes it help.
What brand is it?
Xylitol.
Yeah, so xylitol is one of the sweeteners in some.
Yeah, that one. It's not that xylitol. What it is your chewing gum. The action of chewing and chewing gum makes you salivate more, and it's also it's causing your mouth to roll around more, squeeze the stuff that's there out and get rid of it. You're swallowing it, and the act of chewing, rubbing your teeth on your teeth on your cheek, that actually gets rid of that slough off that outer layer of cells where it's stuck to, and so there's the actual act of physically eating. So it's still good, yeah. Yeah, but it's not just the xylitol. So you can use normal chewing gum and that would have the same effect. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Good old normal chewing gum works out too.
THC is also ethanol soluble, is that right?
I believe so.
Yeah. So if there was a mouthwash or even an ethanol, like a spirit or something, you could mouthwash and spit or swallow. Perhaps could that possibly work? I guess the lesser of two evils may be that you're less likely to have alcohol in your system.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you might fail the initial alcohol breathalyzer, but then of course it won't be, as long as you've spat it out, then it won't be in your system. So then they say, okay, well ethanol they won't have been smoking.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, people have looked at mouthwashes, and they basically have the ethanol-based mouthwashes, and they have the same effect as water.
Oh.
So as just washing your mouth out. Yeah.
Well, that's disappointing.
Yes. Yes.
Any other questions before we move on?
You make it easier.
Yes, sir.
Brendan and I, my son, were discussing the possibility of odd ways of getting around it, such as smoking through your nose. Would that work? The second one was because the first test's just a tongue scrape, some sort of tongue pillow while you smoke. As long as it kept it off the surface of the tongue, would that work?
A dental dam.
Great idea. I was thinking the same thing last night, smoking through your nose. It probably wouldn't be very comfortable, but definitely you could do it. Yeah, that would reduce it down, as long as you didn't get it coming back into your mouth. All good ideas. I like the tongue pillow. Sometimes what they'll do is they'll make you hit the side of your cheeks and rub it on the side rather than just the tongue. They try and get around both, because I think the tongues, the more places they hit, it's more likely to come up. But yeah. And maybe if you had a really long straw and like smoke from the back of your throat, that would help as well. Who knows? Yeah.
Sorry, I got another quick question, just kind of leading from that. Is it true that police can't kind of do this test for you? And that, you know, if you are doing it yourself and essentially not touching the sides of your mouth for long enough, is that... Yeah.
I don't know the legality of that, because it's not my area, but I imagine they're not allowed to physically do it for you. But also, if you are not rubbing it on your tongue, they can tell because it's got a control line, and that would be resisting doing a test. They would just charge you some other way because you're resisting. It's like resisting a breathalyzer test. You just lose your license because it's, yeah.
A couple of weeks ago I'm on medical, and I had a vape of oil, and that would have been in Armadale. About an hour later I got licky stick outside my home in Guyra, and I came up positive, and they made me do my tongue, my insides of both cheeks. Then after the first one came up positive, then they gave me a second licky stick test which was for 24 hours off the road, and then a big bit of stuff that I had, like cotton wool thingy that I had to fill up with spit as well. So I'm just waiting on the test for that. But I'm medical, but that doesn't count, I believe.
Yeah, you're probably best to hopefully get the judge to, if it comes up positive, get the judge to.
But the thing that has worked when I used to live here was the aniseed myrtle oil. As soon as they pull you over, you put a drop of that on your tongue, because it's an oil, they're probably scraping that off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we will, there is some things I'm going to get into a bit later, namely this, and we're going to test to see if they work. But yeah, this thing, I'll get it. If there's no more questions, maybe I'll move on and then get back to it. Cool. Okay, so now we're going to talk about amphetamines. And this is a very different mechanism of action here. What they do is, once you've consumed them in any way, once they're in your body, they're weak bases, these chemicals. Mainly we're talking about amphetamine straight, methamphetamine or methylene doxymethamphetamine, MDMA. They're weak bases, and they're actively transported into your saliva from your blood. And they are present in your saliva at much higher concentrations than they're in your blood. Your saliva really likes to pump them in there. And also they just kind of diffuse there a little bit as well, but they're really kind of like pushed in there. And your hydration levels are severely affected, so if you haven't drunk much water, it will be very concentrated. Generally, you can test positive, they say like about 48 hours. Some people it's less than that, and some people it's a bit more than that. Females generally get detected for longer for some reason. And a lot of it really depends on how much water you've had and how much food you've eaten. And the reason that is because when you consume these types of drugs, the main route the body gets rid of them is through urine. So say for amphetamine, about 75% of it just comes out unchanged, similar to methamphetamine, but slightly higher, about 90% of it comes out unchanged, and it's a little bit less for MDMA. So
does it detect ephedrine?
No, because doesn't have a methylamphetamine group. Yeah. And so they know this because they did some studies on amphetamine in the 70s, and what they were really looking for is things that affect how quickly it gets out of your body. And so they found that when your urine is more acidic, because these are weak bases, they get pulled out by your kidneys and put into your urine. And so the more acidic your urine is, it comes out much, much faster. So, and the conversely is true, the more basic it is, it can prolong the action of the drug and prolong how long it's in your system for. And one thing they found is that giving somebody ascorbic acid, which is vitamin C, that really can flush amphetamines out of your system. And so this has kind of been known a little bit in the underground for a long time, because people with ADHD generally say, no, you can't have your medication and then take a tablet of vitamin C because it stops it working. And that's just because your body then starts flushing the amphetamines out of your system. So there's not really many foods that drastically change your pH of your urine, but having vitamin C and having a lot of water, that can really help. So what I would suggest, I'm not a medical doctor, but if you're worried about them turning up in your system, I would suggest that once you have stopped feeling the effects from them, whether it be that night or the next day, I would suggest that night, I would suggest having a lot of vitamin C before you go to bed, 4 tablets, and then when you get up, and a big glass of water, and then you would repeat that every hour when you got up in the morning. And that will drastically strip all the compounds out of your body. And so, the way drug testing, the laws are written, if you get caught with them in your system, it's drug driving. If you don't have them in your system anymore, it's not drug driving. So, definitely vitamin C is your friend in this case. Have a lot of it, and it can get flushed out of your system.
Has anyone done a test on how much, every hour for how long?
I do it for about half a day. Yeah. I generally get it out of my system about 24 hours.
On the test?
Yeah. But I'm quite quick anyway. I haven't done that test. I haven't done a times test yet. But yeah, that's what all the research papers suggest. I mean, they used to in the early days when people would come into hospital for amphetamine psychosis, they would just inject them with ascorbic acid to get rid of the psychosis, to get it out of their body. Okay, so similar to your urine, the acidity of your mouth actually really dictates how much amphetamines are put into your saliva. If it's slightly basic, slightly acidic, they can put more or less in. But one interesting little tweak, and what they found when they were originally testing how these drug tests work and testing drug tests, is they initially use an expectorant, and that's something that makes you generate a lot of saliva, because they wanted their test subjects to have more saliva, so it's easier to test. And so one thing they did is they would coat the swabs in citric acid, because citric acid just makes a lot of saliva. And in all the tests, they published that the use of citric acid drastically lowered the concentration of drugs in your mouth. Drastically. Because what it does is it generates a lot of saliva very quickly, and that dilutes it out, because your body doesn't have time to pump in the metabolites, and it also doesn't like pumping it into an acidic environment, into a really acidic environment. But that effect doesn't last very long, it only lasts minutes. So, you can actually buy citric acid from the supermarket, really cheaply, and anyone after this talk, you're welcome to come up and try putting it a little bit in your mouth to see what it feels like. It produces a lot of saliva, very quickly. I keep it in my car, and I haven't failed the test yet, but we're gonna put it to the test, quite literally. We're gonna test some citric acid to see if it comes up. We're gonna test some biotin mouthwash, which I was told anecdotally by someone that it works, and we don't really believe them, so we're gonna test it, and we're gonna maybe test vinegar. But before we do that, I think I'll open it up to if anyone has any questions about this before we move to the next section.
So if your urine is acidic, it pushes it into the urine. But if your mouth is acidic, it's harder for it to go into your mouth, or is it just a timing thing?
It's mainly just a timing thing, and it really depends about when we call like urine acidic. They're really talking about right at the kidney area where it's getting it out, and then it tries to combat that by putting other things in. And so similar to a similar thing happens in the salivary glands, but for the expectorant effect, it really is just that flushing. It happens so quickly that they doesn't have time to pump enough out.
So you're saying you do that and in minutes it goes back again?
Yeah, so once you've swallowed that saliva, it will go back to generating normal saliva. Yeah. And it's like you can't just put water in your mouth and get tested, because the test has a control band, which is some kind of protein that's in your saliva. And then the control band would fail if it was just water, and then they'd make you do it again. So.
Yeah, I've experience just I got things from MA going back 6 years ago. I had vinegar salt vinegar chips. I had a whole lot of eating salt vinegar chips just as right up until they were testing me. And it came back negative. And then they let me go. But then they sent me a letter saying you've got to come to court and send me so I had to still go to court and deal with it all, but because it first gets sent off to head office and they test it again.
So did you do 2 tests?
I did one test and also the second one there, oyster thing.
Yeah.
I did it in about 10 minutes. And that was, like it got me off. Yeah, it was weird, but then the test got looked at in their lab in Sydney and they went for it. So
Really? Where was this? What state was this in?
it's in New South Wales.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know in Victoria they wouldn't do that. That if you came up negative for that second test, even if your sample's positive, there you go. Yeah. Did the first one obviously came up positive?
First one, no, what came up? I think, yeah, sorry. Yeah, the first one came up positive, but it must have been just below their levels or something. I'll have to let it go and send the test off.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate they still charged him. Right, so I'm going to need a volunteer, and what I want is somebody that has recently smoked cannabis but doesn't feel impaired, because what we're trying to simulate here is someone that has smoked weed and then they are ready to drive, they're not feeling impaired. And how many hours ago was that?
3 hours ago? No way. 11:30, probably 11:45.
Yeah, okay. And how long ago for you?
Last night.
Last night. Yep. Let's do both. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we'll do a test to make sure it comes up positive first. And then we will test some other things. So maybe grab a chair or you can sit down. And so the test that we're using today is these are called the Drager drug check. They're not the ones the police use, but they're pretty sensitive. They test for a bunch of things, but we'll only really care about the THC at this point. So you will need to take that. Okay, so what I'll let you do is take out the grey piece, put that out. I'll take the blue piece. And so put that in your mouth, and there's a little red stripe on it. So put it in your mouth, collect all your saliva around your cheeks and tongue for about 15 seconds, or until that red band goes away.
What thorough use of the swab. When you're in front of the cops, just try and pretend.
Yeah.
Good way. Slide that there.
Yes.
Is that how the police do it?
I think they go like this, don't they? Sorry? No, this only tests for THC. So this tests for THC, cocaine, opiates, amphetamine, methamphetamine, and MDMA, and benzos. So, and it's just methamphetamine and MDMA on the first test yet, but not amphetamine itself, which is ADHD medication. Alright. Let's see, so this will just run slowly.
I have overdosed on capsules and it came up clean.
Wow.
You overdosed on capsules.
Yeah, like I greened out as far as I could, like as many capsules in my mouth. I kept upgrading.
I love how you're. I just
gave me a whole
tried it.
box of swabs to try, right?
Yeah.
So I started low dose and I kept going up until I greened out.
Yeah.
And generally I was clean, except the time that I did reflux a little bit with the greening out experience.
Yeah.
But I'll say 90% of the time I was clean. Just letting you know, capsules, no blood, no ulcers, no wobbly teeth. Look after your teeth. Capsules were...
Guys, what we're looking for is a disappearance of a band. This is not very strong, it's already kind of coming up with no band at THC. Yeah, that's what we're looking for, that's positive. So you're still positive, which it's 3 hours ago.
I'm a massive I had like probably 15,000 milligrams of THC gummies yesterday.
So gummies are like...
And then probably smoked like my normal probably 45. I ate a hash cookie and made a hash brownie. Yeah.
Well, it's perfect, 'cause this is like, it's good to test. You're coming up negative. No use to it.
And I'm on medical too, so I smoke.
Yeah, and so like that's I guess a good gauge for you. You can smoke that much. Yeah.
What would it be in your mouth today?
Mushrooms.
That's positive. All right. Do I have enough? Thank you. Thank you. All right. So.
Yes.
Do we have another volunteer? Someone else that smoked And what was it? When's the last time you smoked?
3 a.m. this morning. It was a vape. Oh, maybe 5 or 6.
God, guys, we're on Mardi Gras and no one's stoned right now. Like, come on.
Drive home.
Do you think you'll come up?
Probably.
10 o'clock? I mean, that's... yeah, I mean, that you'd probably be impaired to drive. Is it like, I'm just... That's pretty recent.
You know how you said impaired to drive? I smoke every day. I'm on medical and I smoke in the morning. It's percent on my prescription to smoke in the morning. Me and my mum were talking about this yesterday. Obviously I'm impaired because I'm under because I'm stoned. But I'm probably more impaired in the brain when I'm not smoking in the morning than when I am actually stoned and then get in the car.
Yeah. I mean, it's impairment.
It's interesting that
impairment is your judgment.
Yeah, it's interesting when people say impaired.
I don't know if I want a fresh one. Did they come up positive?
Maybe just 5 minutes ago.
You just smoked 5 minutes ago? No, it's too
No, we need somebody that's not smoked recently but has smoked this morning.
Didn't you say?
Oh yeah, let's first move with this. Who reckons this will work? Fire team? Any votes? Anyone think it will work? Who thinks it won't work? What is it? Biotin. It's just a mouthwash. Who knows? I got told it works, so what I want you to do is
It's jelly water, basically.
It's what?
Water jelly.
Okay. Love that, mate.
need a cup.
Mummy, is my cup empty?
You're putting the hand in. Oh, yeah. It's about water.
Sorry, it's the mushrooms. They don't.
Do you want me to get you a cup? I've got cups down here. Do you want me to get you
Yeah. Grab a cup. Cool.
2 cups coming?
Alright. Let's go with you. Yeah. So, take that graping out. In your mouth. Have you eaten anything after you smoke?
You smoke normally?
Like from a vape or from a joint? Okay. Is it red? Keep going. Can't see it yet.
Right.
So,
Is 2 enough?
yeah, thank you. So rinse your mouth out there. Just swirl it around and spit it out.
I used to use the biotin down.
Around. Having a dry mouth when you're really stoned doesn't help either. That normally makes it quite a bit worse. Yeah, if you get a line there, it just means they're quite variable on like the strength of the bands, even like just like one to one. Yeah. That looks like your looks like there's no band there, which means positive. Alright, shall we try the citric acid? Let's see if this works. Cool, so these THCs right, what I want you to do is just hold out your hand, I'll pour some into it, and I want you to just get a pinch of it. And push it around your mouth, build up. Alright?
Can't swallow that saliva. Keep what's in your mouth.
So keep that saliva in your mouth.
Don't swallow, just hold it right in there. Then like you have like you have to spit or something. Don't swallow that spit.
Positive.
Okay.
Still positive. So,
There you go.
There you go.
BioT does not work, everyone.
BioT does not work. Do you want to have a go at the citric acid?
Yeah, I do. Actually. Take a look.
So 1 second, let me just start this first. Okay, hit it.
I wonder what a combo of BioT and citric acid would do. A little volcano or something.
Go for it. That's not a lot.
That
was a massive amount. You just hit it.
Can you talk with your mouth on BioT? You know, you're in front of the cop.
Did you say you're not spitting out that saliva?
Yeah.
Just.
But the cop's going to want to talk to you. He's going to say,
No, that's alright. They can talk to me. I don't mind.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. We'll do one more. Just check.
yeah, no, as long as you can say
Gone straight away. I didn't push that down. I probably prefer the citric acid than the BioT, to be honest. The citric acid kind of just tastes like a sour lolly.
We used to make sure of that.
And I put a hell of a lot of that in my
Put a
mouth
lot.
just then.
That's more than, that's a lot.
Yeah, and it didn't taste, it wasn't that bad. So I drew that before BioT.
well, you're going to overdose on it because you're stressed out. You know, hot seat. You're only stressed out.
I'll tell you.
You go straight away.
Not
After these big broil will be empty of citric acid.
holes and all these going on.
Want a second opinion?
Yeah, look at this. It's hard to tell with this one.
Question while we're waiting. How much do these tests cost?
They're about $30.
How There are cheaper ones.
Yeah, they're cheaper ones. Hard to tell at this stage, but there is a band showing up.
There is a band showing up, but it's very faint. Like, but they're all kind of faint, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I just let it sit.
Because I reckon I reckon that all the bands on that
All
are
the
quite
bands are
dodgy.
slightly fake,
Yeah.
slightly low.
Yeah.
And that could be maybe like it's quite acidic and it's changing the how the test works a little bit.
Like the protein in it.
Yeah.
Is this your current? Is this the current one? The third one?
Because they're all
1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
No, that's her one.
Oh,
That's my one.
sorry. This one is 1, 2, 3.
Maybe, yeah.
That's my third one.
That's the third one. Which one of these was the first? That actually looks like
Yeah. So yours still coming up positive?
Yeah.
very faint.
Very faint.
It's definitely red, pinker, and washy.
If anyone wants to come up and have a look, we'll
Put them in the centre.
So that's my last one. That's citric acid.
and that's just not swallowing it.
I guess potentially if it's very faint, they might regard that as ambiguous and just have you do another one.
And they
Is
might
that possible?
have you do another one.
Yeah. And it'll be a bit hard for you to have another go at citric acid.
Yeah, and this is why this is why we'll do another test. Okay. You're coming up pretty positive still.
Yeah.
Well, it's on the line. Like there is a line there. There is a THC.
So
Oh,
that middle one, yeah, that one there is my.
this one.
No, that one there at the end. You said, yeah, that's my citric acid.
Are you saying there is a solution here?
This is your citric acid.
After you join, you just...
This citric acid one has got a band of THC.
Just before you do the test.
Which means.
It's negative.
Negative?
Oh,
Negative.
so you can't make out the number.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's happened is they have both come up. The theory is negative because there's a band for each, but they are very, very faint. Now we'll do one more test. I've only got one more test, and you can't really do that on the side of the road when you're going for a drug test, right? You can't just slap a whole bunch of citric acid in your mouth, sit there. You've got to talk to the cops. If they see you eating, they will make you wait. Yeah, but what I'm saying is you can't put the thing in, hold
You're
the
not
liquid
even
in your
allowed to
mouth.
sit there and have a cigarette
So-
while you're waiting for the swab.
Now that you've had it, what we're going to do is I want you to have a little bit more. Do you want to rock off maybe who does it? Yeah.
Do you want to do it?
Got,
I
we've
don't
got one
mind, I
test.
really don't mind. Go nuts.
You want to do it? Cool. So put a little bit, get a little bit, put it in your mouth, similar to before, just a little pinch. Swirl it round, and then I want you to swallow the liquid. Is that right? Okay. Now that you've swallowed it, and we'll do it now, so you can probably talk. Do you know what I pulled you over for? You're wasted. Yeah, cool. If anyone's got any questions,
Questions at this stage?
or if anyone wants to come up and look at the test before we finish.
Can you maybe project? It's getting a bit hard with the microphone. Trying to speak up? Yeah.
Considering how bad our system of RDT is, are there any countries that you know of that do approach this well? Like the issue of inebriation with
Yeah, in Canada. I mean, they just test you for impairment, like physical impairment, you know. In America, they do sobriety testing. Which, I mean, it has its problems, totally. Like, I can't do the alphabet backwards. But, you know, that's right.
But it's not about sobriety testing, it's about the mere presence.
Yeah. Right.
Yes. Can you speak up? Is that all right?
Yeah. You know, you said the COPS testing thing has a line that tests for protein, so
The control line, yep.
yeah. What if you had to rinse your mouth with protein water and use that water?
Yeah, in theory, yeah, that could work. I don't know, you'd have to hold that liquid in your mouth. It would be like an artificial saliva you'd have to use. Again, but if you'd have to talk to the police, give you a license, then they watch you. They watch you generally when you're doing the test. So
They often have the test there in their hands.
Yeah.
They walk up to you, wind down your windows around down, you hand your license over. They're there asking, how's your day today? As they're undoing any alcohol, stick test, or the lick test pattern today, and then saying, we're doing a random drug and alcohol testing today. Here is, have you done one of these before? Here is it. They're there watching you, and so there's not really anything you can do. I guess the only thing you can do is, like you said, the citric acid, or probably citric acid would be easy to buy.
Well, that when they
you have
pull you
to
up.
spit it out. The citric acid, you can shove it in your mouth and like I did before. You can't talk from, yeah, good, yeah, great, yeah, great, yeah, great. That's all you can do, yeah, great, yeah, great. Like,
you can have the powder just sitting there somewhere, like easily accessible, where you can just like get a pinch of it, and then just like.
As soon as you see that copper driving, and then yeah, great, that's all you can do. They then keep trying to probe questions out of you're going to have to solve it. Some say no, so then it's not going to work.
But it's,
I wish you had used biotin gel.
Yeah.
That sits like a jelly on the tongue.
I didn't even like when the guy said biotin. I thought he meant biotin, which is like a little.
The same thing, but
like a protein.
Same thing, but it comes.
But that's biotin, which is a wash. So.
Biotin gel. It sits like a jelly on your mouth, like Coke.
And then you can talk.
Yeah. Just gently swab it in the biotin.
So that looks like you're potentially coming up positive, which would mean the citric acid only really works when you have that liquid in your mouth. So if you swallow that liquid coming off the citric acid, then you'll get it back again.